Welcome, and let's get started. Welcome guys. Great to see everyone here for another stream today. We're going to be talking about tone. We know that's one of the things that guitarists, whether you play in worship teams or not, we're all kind of obsessed with tone. And it makes sense, because if your tone is nice, if you enjoy it, you're going to play better. And if the tone is not quite happening, then it's going to affect your playing a little bit negatively, because you're not going to like the sound of your playing. So wonderful. Let's go ahead and see who we've got joining us here today. We've got Michael Rue saying, here we go, the rabbit hole of worship guitar tone, the second most exciting thing other than when sharing the Holy Spirit. Let's go. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. For sure, tone is a fun and games, and it's definitely a deep rabbit hole indeed. And we've got Caster Viking saying hi from the Netherlands again. Hello, Caster. Welcome to see you. We've got Donald watching from North Carolina, US. We've got Larry Simonis watching from Grays Lake, Illinois. We've got Jacobus Bester. Hey, Jacobus, he's a few rooms down here, one of our WGS team members. So give Jacobus and Kenan a shout out in the comments. They really helped me get all the stuff organized here, from the gear to the video edits to the tabs and everything. And we've got Brad as well. So awesome team. Manuel is saying, hello family, tuning in from South Pasadena, California. Hey Manuel, lovely to see you. Hope all things are well on your end. Craig tuning in from Houston, Texas. And Michael Rue is tuning in from the beautiful city of Pretoria, South Africa. Welcome Michael, great to see you. Also always great to see fellow South Africans tune in. And I used to live in Pretoria quite a couple of years, so welcome. And then Ventislav Dosev saying hello from C3 Church in Bulgaria. Welcome, Ventislav. And Kenan saying hey from South Africa. And Brian tuning in from Indiana, USA. Awesome. We've got a full house here. For those of you tuning in, keep letting us know where you are tuning in from. Always great to see who we've got on these streams. Wonderful. So I'm going to just get myself settled. So we have a few tools to work with today. We've got also Harold saying, hey from Flint, Michigan. We've got, I can't see the name here, or I can't read Korean, but someone tuning in from South Korea, welcome. And Rick Sheridan tuning in from Florida. Wonderful. Let's quickly just double check if you can hear my guitar. As I strike it there, I see it's not coming through. So I'm wondering what could be causing that. Let me just see. It's so funny that the episode about tone, I don't have any sound. So let's just see something else here. Okay. Kenan, I might need your help just to kind of suss out why we don't have any guitar. I'm just going to see my settings in the back. All right, so hopefully Kenan will come into the studio shortly and just help us sort out the guitar. It just seems like there's no signal going through. So this is obviously happens often, technical difficulties. So hopefully we can get that taken care of quickly. I'm wondering if it's got something to do with our rig manager that we've got plugged in here today. But I don't think that should affect us in any way, shape or form. All right, cool. So, yeah, Kenan, so there's no guitar coming through. I don't know if it's got anything to do with Rig Manager. I'm going to close Rig Manager and let's see if that changes anything. I'm plugged into the right cable and... Oh, wait a minute, guys. So, someone unplugged and plugged it into the headphones instead of the input. All right. All is well. No worries. We'll blame the tech demons. No, just joking. Yeah, if you plug your guitar into the headphone of your Kemper, it's not going to work. So that's our lesson for today. All right, Larry Simone is saying a mute monster. Yep. And Michael Rue saying the devil's a liar. All right, guys, good stuff. We got our guitar going. So that's going to be working fine. And then I'm going to be sharing, I want to share my iPad with you so I can draw a few things. And then I want to take you guys into the Kemper profiler, where we can see some things right in front of us. So let's bear with me a second as I just open up the different scenes so I can share these elements with you. All right, awesome. And let's just see if does that bring up the black iPad. And if I draw this, let's see if that's coming through. That's coming through. Wonderful. And then for our, I'll have to reopen Rig Manager because I closed it. I thought maybe that was causing our muting issues. So while we do that, Elias Osman from Mozambique, Maputo, saying hey. All right, cool. So one more time, let's see if we can get the Rig Manager to show, and there it is. Okay, excellent. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. So let me know in the comment section what you are using for tone. I know some people will be using an amp and pedals. Others might be using the Line 6 Helix. Some might be using some Kemper stuff. Some might be using anything else. I mean, there's such a wide range of things. But it'll help me just to kind of get a sense of what it is that you are using. And then from there, we can go ahead and jump into the meat and potatoes of today's lesson. So I'll keep an eye on the comments to see what it is that you guys are using. So one of the first things that and I'm going to keep this fairly simple. We won't be able to cover all of the different effects and things. So we will leave things like modulation and pitch-based effects. We'll leave them for another time to dial in a little bit deeper. So what we're going to do instead is we're just going to kind of keep things nice and simple. So if I go to my iPad over here, if this is your pedal board, then obviously, you got to take into account your signal chain. And the signal chain is simply the order in which you're going to be putting your pedal. So for the sake of the example, we're just going to start here, and that's going to be our compression. We'll call it comp. Compression is the first thing in our chain that we want to be working with. I'm going to go into all those details shortly. And then people have drives, and in a lot of the worship guitar situation, people tend to stack drives together. So they can have two types of drive. One might be a high gain and another one might be a low gain. So then there's two drive pedals. And then what you can do after your drive pedals is what you're going to, of course, then you need to sometimes take into account if you need a boost, like a boost pedal. Something if you just need that couple of dB boosting in your sound, if you're going to be playing a lead line or something else, then that's quite important. And then over here, the obvious space for the volume pedal, which I'll show you shortly why that is the case. And then from there, you're going to go into your wet effects. So of course, it's going to be the delay and then the reverb. So this is just a very simple signal chain. And what happens, I'll just add some arrows here to kind of show you. That's the way you want to stack these things together so that the pedals are going to work together in a nice way. And I'm going to be talking about this in a moment. So let's have a look at some comments here in terms of the gear. All right, wonderful. So Elias is using a Velaton GP200. I have not heard that one before. We've got Carster saying he's using a Boss Katana 100 with a Boss Tone Studio where you can make some presets. Yeah, presets is definitely your friend in worship. Got Darren saying it's got a Helix LT, awesome. And then Manuel's using a Spark and a Fender Mustang, lovely. Craig Tyler's got a Helix floor and a PRS guitar, awesome. Yeah, PRSs are fantastic. Godwin's tuning in from Nigeria. Jacobus has got a Pod Go, let's go, that's awesome. And then XYZ Mon is using the HX Stomp XL. We know Kenan uses the same, so Kenan's also on the HX Stomp XL. And we've got Rick Sheridian using a Spark amp and a Rules Breaker digital amp. Brian Bilashupka has got the Helix floor. And then Michael Rue, he's got his tuner, JHS double barrel going into the Iridium, the Strymon Iridium, a Timeline, a Big Sky, and that then either goes into the digital audio workstation or straight into the desk. And then Michael Aguilar's got a Line 6 Catalyst 60 plus a Boss GX100 multi-pedal. Awesome, so we've got quite the variety of elements here, and as you can see, that's the one thing with tone. I just wanted to quickly talk about that is even just as we've mentioned, we've all got different guitars and different gear. Some has got devices, some has amps and pedals and so forth. And Eddie Satterfield is also using the Pod Go there. In addition to different guitars, different gear, we've all got different skills, right? And the better your skill is, the better your tone is going to be. But we've got different levels of skill, and then we're playing in different worship teams. Some might be a 2 electric guitar worship team. Some might be 1 electric guitar. Some people are in a church where they might not have a drummer and a bassist, and it's just keyboard and guitar. So even the band changes so much. So with all these variables, it's really hard to kind of say this is the definitive worship guitar tone. And even if we listen to some of the worship teams with nice guitar stuff, which comes to mind like Bethel or Elevation Worship, of course, Hillsong. But those guys, when they do the recordings, there's like 5 or 6 different guitar tracks. So when you're going to try and replicate that on a Sunday, it's obviously you can't play all the parts. And then also the front of house gear and the equipment in the room. There's so many variables that there's not really a definitive worship guitar tone. But what I'm going to share today is just some best practices. And if we go back to the iPad here, this is a good way to go ahead and just think of your signal chain. And then we've got Levi from Kenya saying he's got no guitar effects, but he's trusting God for one. And a lot of us will be in that state as well, where we are trusting the Lord to bless us with gear and equipment so that we can go ahead and, obviously find what we need so that we can better do our job. So now that we've kind of set the stage in like a typical signal chain and also talking about how everyone's got a different situation, let's go ahead now and then just look at some of my tone here. So as we can see, that right there is just what we call the rig manager on our Kemper. And I'm going to try and see if I can maybe zoom in on a couple of things over here for you guys. 1 second, because that will be useful if we can zoom in. So I'm just going to quickly find that window and then we'll take care of that. All right, cool. So that's that. And then let me have a look at the overlays so I can go ahead and just zoom in there a little bit. So we've gotten, there we go. Let's see if that's going to come. Yep, there we go. All right. So with that one, let me just see how I can go ahead and zoom in there a little bit. Just need to unlock it. And let's just see if I zoom like that. Okay, it's just going to be a little bit too big. So let's just go back there. You might not be able to see all of the details 100%, but I'll talk you through it. But this is my tone, and I'm just going to quickly play it for you. I can maybe boost it a little bit there. And I just need to drag some of this stuff just out a little bit so that it's a bit bigger. Okay, cool. Just over those guitars. So that's kind of my sound if I just play a power chord like this. All right, so we've got that going, and then if I want to play, that's kind of playing there. That's my sound. I'm going to quickly break that down for you in a second. So let me just zoom in here one more time so we can make that a little bit bigger. And then that's basically what we got here. So just want to give a shout out to Sean Skipper for a super chat there. And he says, Father, thank you for my brother. Thank you for all he has put into the teaching of others and how to lead. Bought a lifetime for myself and my friend 2 months ago, and I don't have the time yet, but I plan to get there in the fall. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sean. We appreciate that support, and thanks for getting your friend a lifetime subscription as well. That's wonderful. We really, really appreciate and value that. Thank you so much. And Michael was just saying he's got a Fender Deluxe Slimline Telecaster. Wonderful. Now, what have I got going on this tone? If we go back, that is my signal chain that you can see over there. Let's just see if I can make that bigger in any way. So my signal chain follows the compressor. It's got a drive, a pure booster, my amplifier, obviously in the Kemper, and then I've got my delays and my reverb. So what you're seeing in front of you right there, if you can see my mouse move, those are the settings that I've got, which then lines up with what I drew over here in the iPad, just to kind of show that signal chain. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn off everything. I'm going to turn off all of the stuff that I've got going on here. So I'm going to turn off my compression. I'm going to turn off my boost. My pure boost is off. My modulation delay, my other delay is off, and my reverb is off. So now we should just hear my clean sound. So I've got some EQ going on there. I'm going to turn that off. Now the guitar amp stack is off, and then my cabinet is off. So this is literally if I were just to plug in my guitar into a desk. The most important is your amp. So in my case, I've got an amp here set up, and I've got my cabinet. So you can probably see me turn those on and off. So if the amp goes off, those lights go off there. And so does the cabinet, also off. But I want to turn my amp on and my cabinet on. So that's going to give me this sound. Now, in Worship, the first thing that you want to have, if you just look at this real quick, is your compression. I'm going to turn my compression on right now, so you can hear that. And can you even hear as I just play that chord with compression and without compression? It doesn't quite have the same bite when I don't have my compression on. Let's turn it on again. Compression is on now. It just tightens up the sound. So that's the first thing that you want to get in your playing, to get kind of a real tight sound going in your compression, because what it basically does is, think of your levels in your guitar playing. It brings the softer bits higher, and the loud bits, it makes it softer. That's important for when you want to play, because you're not always going to play with the same intensity, but you want to kind of give a solid signal as you are playing. So if you don't have a compression, I would definitely recommend getting it. And what I see a lot of folks here on their setups, they've got multi-effects, so you definitely be able to grab a compression. So like I just said, the compression, what does it do? It's going to make those quiet bits softer and the loud bits quieter. If you don't have that, then some of your playing is either going to be too overpowering, or it's going to get drowned in the mix. So when you have it, it's going to give you a more polished tone, and it's going to add some sustain to your playing. A lot of times I do these kind of things. I'll just show you. Let's turn my reverb and delay on quickly, and then let's turn on this green screen. So sometimes I do these kind of things. And let's put on this boost as well there. So even if I were to do that over a track. So you can hear there's a lot of sustain, and that's what the compression does. If I take my compression off and I play those same lines, you see it kind of dies away. But if I leave the compression on, it helps me with that sustain, just to give me a little bit more of a sound there. So definitely get a compression. And then there's just a couple of settings that you need to be aware of. Is number one is your threshold, or sometimes it's called the intensity, like they have it here on the Kemper. That's going to determine at which level should that compression kick in. So if I turn off my my intensity all the way to, it was on 3, I've turned it now to 0. And I'm going to turn it all the way full. It's way too intense. So you want to play with the settings of your compression to not make it sound, it should still sound authentic and natural. And your attack, for example, that's going to determine how quickly does that compression kick in. So if it's all the way up there, then I'm going to have to play very loud for that attack to kick in. But if it's all the way down here, it's going to kick in immediately. So you kind of want to have that around the 2.5 level in this instance that I've got here. Then it gives my sound still, it has that natural attack before the compression kicks in, which is quite important for you to have. Then the other setting in addition to your attack is your ratio. Now you can see that I've got it here, which is called squash. So if I want to make that all the way to the right, it's going to really squash it heavily. Can you hear that? It just takes away the dynamics. And if it's all the way to the left, it's not going to have any effect. So now you want to also play with that a little bit. So it's sometimes called the ratio, sometimes the squash. So the best thing I can recommend for you when you're working with compression is play around with the settings where you can get it to build your sustain, increase your sustain, but still sound natural. So you want that tight, focused sound, but you don't want it to be too squashed, because then it's not going to sound natural. It's almost like looking at someone's face who has had an excessive amount of plastic surgery, right? Everything might be in the right place or whatever the case may be, but the features, it just lacks. It's you can see when something's been overdone, or if you look at a photograph that's been photoshopped too much, where they make someone's skin look perfect. It loses the human touch. Now, with compression, it's similar. You want to kind of keep that going there. The second thing with the drives is sometimes some people have one drive pedal, and another times they have two. So the way this works is, in my instance here, I've got a green scream, and then I've also got a boost. So I don't actually have two pedals in my situation. If we go and look at just real quick at the signal chain again, then we can see that there are two drive pedals there. Now, this is called gain staging. Now, gain staging means that you are feeding one drive into another drive pedal. Now, in my case, like I say here, so Craig Tyler saying he's got to get back to work. He'll rewatch the video later. Awesome. Great to have you on with us. And Thomas tuning in from Germany with the Helix floor. And then we'll answer Costa's question real quick before we dive into the drive things. So Costa's saying, when I turn compression on, I get a big noise that almost does not want to go away. Any idea what I can do against that? That's the thing to keep in mind, and it kind of links in with what we're going to talk about, the two drives, is if you look at this signal chain, which is why I just wanted to draw this picture for you. Whatever you do with any of the preceding pedals, it's going to have an effect on everything down the line. So you might have something in your drive section that is set a little bit high, or even the boost. So that's obviously a sound that is being boosted quite severely, because there's distortion happening, there's overdrive happening, there's all that natural clipping, all that awesome stuff. So your compression will then basically enhance that whole sound quite a lot. And sometimes what you need to do there, Costa, is you might just have to do one of two things. Either you need to see, can you reduce the gain of the pedals in your gain stage, or can you play around with the compression itself with regards to, say, the threshold or the attack or the ratio. So sometimes, or even on the compression, I'll show you guys real quick. Just can you see here that I've got a volume on my compression? I'm on the wrong screen, so you can't see that. I've got a volume on my compression here. So if I just play one note again, I'll just put on a drive so that cuts through a bit. Now, if I take my volume all the way up, even there you can hear more of the guitar now. Listen to all this noise. So there's too much volume. If I take it back to where it was, roughly around 1, now if my hand goes across the strings, you can't hear it as much. So that is one of the things that you might have to play around with, Costa, is the settings of the pedal. The volume is going to be how loud your compression is going to be, and the mix is going to be how much of the natural sound versus the compressed sound are you hearing. So those might be two things that you might have to look into as it relates to, like I drew in the picture here. It's either bringing some of the other gains or the levels down, So that when you kick the compression on, it doesn't highlight too much of that. Or the other option is just if you've got a volume on the compression, or not the attack, but the ratio, like how much it basically compresses. I would play around with those settings, because if those are set incorrectly, then it can add a bit of a unnatural sound to your playing there. Now, back to the drives discussion. I can go ahead and just show you, if I go to a signal chain, here we've got what we call a high gain drive and a low gain drive. So if I have this drive engaged and it's set on and it's going to give me a sound, and then before that drive I engage a second drive, what's going to happen now, in the first situation where only one pedal is engaged, that means my signal that goes into this pedal is like maybe just a compressed signal. So I've only got the compression engaged, and then that goes into my lower gain drive. Because in that instance, I'm getting a fairly clean compressed signal into my drive. But when I engage the drive before it, now I am feeding my second drive an overdriven sound. It's no longer just a clean sound. So I'm actually, that's why it's called gain staging. I've got a second stage of my drive happening. So that's nice if you want to do certain things, like, let's just say you've got this drive pedal here, you enjoy the sound, but you'd like to do what we call tone shaping. What does tone shaping mean? That means you like the sound of this drive, it's sounding good, but you would like to maybe make it a little bit brighter. Then you can go ahead and put it into a second drive, and then this second drive, what you can do is you can adjust the brightness, or you can adjust the a little bit of the drive. Any of these additional settings that you go ahead and adjust on your second drive is going to act as a tone shaper for your first drive. So that's one approach that you can do when it comes to gain staging. Now, another way of doing that is you just want to play around with how and where do you put your pedals, right? That's a big difference, or not a big difference, but you got to figure out where do you want to put your pedals. So you just want to kind of experiment with these in terms of, do you want to put your low gain first, or do you want to put your second gain, your second stage as a low gain, or your second stage as a high gain, right? We're going to be doing a video about this in future, just talking a little bit more about the details of that. But even if you just split this, so if you make this the low gain and you make that the high gain, then it means you're going to feed a slightly overdriven sound into your high gain. And then from that point of view, this is going to sound very different than if it was a high gain pedal. This is your main drive, and you're feeding that to shape the overdrive. That's basically all it is. It's doing gain, it's shaping the gain. So in my case, if we go back to my Kemper rig manager, I'll show you what I've got here. So you can see that, there we go. So my first got a compression. I've got a dirty amp already. So check this out. That's just compression into my amp. Obviously there's delay and reverb, but now if I add in this green screen, which is based on a tube screamer, can you hear it's just now pushing the amp a little bit louder. If I turn it off, can you hear immediately it loses a little bit of that bite. If I put it on, it brings some of that bite and that brightness. And now I can use this tone knob here. If I go all the way down, it's going to be a bit more dull. If I go all the way up, it's going to be too bright maybe. Yeah, those highs are too pronounced there. If I bring it to about 7.5 where it was, then that's kind of the sweet spot. So can you see already how that makes a difference? I'm just using this tube screamer like pedal to drive my amp a little bit louder, because I've got the volume, instead of setting it at 1, it's at 1.5. So if I go all the way down, no volume, then I'm feeding the amp a low signal, because my volume is not high enough. And if I go to like that 1.5 where we had it, now it's going to be nice again. It's beefy and it's punchy and it cuts through the mix. If I go all the way up, now it's a bit too much. So you want to experiment with combining two sources of drive. In my first example, I said, okay, great. Maybe you have a clean amp and you're going to use two drive pedals that you're going to do together. Or maybe like I've just shown you in this example, it's not two drive pedals, but instead I've got a dirty amp and then my drive is going into the amp and it's shaping it a little bit. A cool way to think about this is sometimes if you cook or if you eat a meal made by a master chef or someone who knows cooking, if they combine two different tastes together, then the taste can complement each other. It's almost like a sweet and sour chicken, right? You've got a sweet taste and a sour taste, but together it combines, makes a new experience. That's kind of what happens when you either have a tube screamer going into a dirty amp, like I've got, or you've got two drive pedals working together. You can get new sounds and more tonal flexibility as you can shape the sound with a second dirty pedal. So that's gain staging. We can talk more about that. If you have any questions about gain staging, feel free to let me know. But that's a cool way in which you can go ahead and just experiment with shaping your tone. Because it's in the same way, depending if you're cooking, if you use too much salt, you can ruin a dish. And if it has no salt, it's also not nice. So it's all about that balance. So that's how I like to think about when I cook up my tones, so to speak, with my compression, with my drives, whether it's one or two, with my delays, my reverbs, all those kind of things. I don't want to overdo it or overpower anything. I want to just get that balance just right. And in addition to saying that, remember that your sound needs to work in the mix. Because sometimes you can have a really cool sound at home, but as soon as you take it to play in church or within the context of the building, a full band, then that sound can just totally disappear. And that's one of the reasons why worship guitarists like to use drive. Some folks like to use fuzz even, because that grittiness allows the guitar signal to cut through the mix a lot more. And then, like I said to you, if you can EQ or tone shape your sound a little bit, it's going to have a better opportunity of cutting through the mix. Back in the day, they used to talk about the Metallica sound when they had the Black Album, and they talked about this V-shaped sound with the bass boosted, the mids scooped out, and then the trebles boosted again. So when you play that kind of sound with the guitar on its own, it sounds awesome. But if you're going to do that in a worship setting, either the sound is going to disappear, because in Metallica, there's just, it's two guitar players, right? Obviously, it's a heavy rock band. Depending on your definition, but there's just two guitars, whereas in a worship team, you've got piano, you've got keyboards, you've got acoustic guitar, you've got vocals, backing vocals, and then sometimes two electric guitars. So the ensemble looks different, so therefore you need to get a sound that's going to work within that context. I remember over Christmas, we were a full house with family visiting our in-laws, and I have a few meals that I can make, and one of them is carbonara, which is just basic spaghetti with bacon and raw egg that you mix into it after it's cooked, and then the egg gets cooked into the meal itself. So my family loves when I make that, and then my wife said, well, why don't I make that one night, over Christmas, and I did, but then I had to make it for 10 people, or maybe 11 or 12, I don't remember. And I got my ratios mixed up because I know how much salt I normally grind into the meal when I make it for my family of my wife and myself and 3 small kids. But when I had to do it for this family of 10 or 12, a lot of people, I got my ratios mixed up and I put too much salt in there. And as you know, you can't really take the salt out after you've put it in. So the same goes for when you're cooking up your tone at home and you're going to go and play at a church. It's a bigger, there's more instruments that you have to compete with. And compete is the wrong word to use, but you have to factor in their sonic frequencies and what all those things sound like together so that you can give the sound guy a good tone that doesn't just sound awesome in your room, but it actually works at church as well. So that's important to consider. And then I've also got a boost over here. So I'll go to my boost here. It's a pure booster. I'll put that on for you so you can just see what's going on when I go to the pure booster. Now I've got drive is set to super low. The tone is boosted at about 7.5. My mix is at about 60% and my volume is at 1.5. So let me just see, why is that still called... let me see if I need to double click that maybe. There we go. Okay, sorry, I gave you the green screen settings. So my pure booster is just boosting the volume there with like 1.7. So with the pure booster on, it sounds like that. With it off, it sounds like this. So it's a subtle change, but I notice that when I play live, and it just gives me that additional boost for the sound to cut through. So it's not going to be a massive volume boost in that sense, but it's going to be enough for your sound to really cut through the mix. Now let's quickly talk about your volume pedal. I have a volume pedal that I just don't have it connected at the moment, but if you put your volume pedal after your drives and before your delays, that to me is the best place to put it. And let's talk about why that is the best place to put it. If you put your volume pedal, and let's just see if we can do this real quick. If I put my volume pedal over here at the beginning of my chain, then that means as I adjust my volume, it's going to affect how my drives sound, because now I'm giving it less volume, which means if I don't give my drives the full volume treatment there, then I'm not going to get a full sound. So that's why I prefer to have my volume pedal down here, because then it doesn't affect my drive. So what do I mean by that? It's quite simple. I'm going to play it for you and you can hear, but instead of a volume pedal, let's do that with my volume on my guitar. Here I've got full volume. All right. So I can play cool stuff like I can play. So I've got a lot of drive, as you can hear there. Okay, so that's my volume full. Now, if I take my volume down to about a third up, then it's going to sound like this. And that is not a bad sound, but the thing is, it's no longer overdriven that much. Because why is that the case? Because I'm sending let me just get the right tool here. I'm sending a lower signal through into my drive pedals. And because it's a lower signal going into these drives, it cleans up the sound. But as I open it up, so that is a nice sound, and it's nice to be able to clean up if you need to. Or if I play, let's say I do... I can maybe just go here, so if you guys want to see what I'm doing. So I can play. But as I bring my volume pedal or my volume knob higher, if it's down there, it's like really gentle. You see, when I do that kind of thing, now it's singing a lot more than what it was if I had my volume down here and I'm not really giving a lot of volume into my drives. That's why I don't like my volume pedal to be here, because it's going to affect my tone. So that's the long and the short of what I'm saying. If your volume pedal is down here, it's going to affect your tone because you are feeding this, you're not feeding your drives a consistent signal. So sometimes you might want to clean up with your volume a little bit, but then use your volume knob on the guitar like I did. Because for me, the volume pedal is if you want to bring your overall volume down. You don't necessarily want to clean up the drives, because that's what your volume control is like on your guitar, to clean up your drives. It's not for the volume pedal. That's why I like it there. Now, some folks, they put their volume pedal at the end, after the reverbs. And why is that also not a preference for me? Because, and I don't have mine like that, but I'm going to be able to emulate it. Listen if I play even like this. You see, you keep hearing those washes. So on my guitar, and I can go back here. If I do this, I'll just move back so you can see my volume pedal. I'm going to play a chord. So I turn the volume off. But you can still hear my delays trailing after I put the volume down. But if you have this set up with your volume down there, or your volume pedal being the last in the chain, then if I play a sound like this, and I pull my volume down, then it's all of a sudden I kill even the trails of the delay and the reverb. One more time. If you then put your volume pedal down in the heel down position, it's going to cut everything. It acts then like a kill switch. So that's why I don't like it there. So I prefer it to be right there. I don't even need to get rid of my delay trails, because I know what they sound like. So I don't even need to have my my guitar in that mode. So that is what I'm doing with my volume pedal, is I put it in the middle, because then I get the best of everything. I'm not affecting my drives. I'm not cleaning them up. And if I want to clean them up, like I said, I'm going to use my volume knob on my guitar. If I want this to be cleaned up, but not with my volume pedal. My volume pedal here exists to give me louder and softer. Number one. And then number two, if I go with my volume pedal from the heel down position like that, so instead of the toe down, then if I go heel down to make the volume 0, my delay trails and my reverb trails can continue going on. So that is a big deal for me, because I like the sound of delay in that sense. So it was more a lesson around signal chain, because now the fact of the matter is, if I go back to my rig manager, and I go to my delays, so there's my delays. You can see that's all my settings for the delays. Most obviously on the Kemper you got way more than what you would have on standard pedals, but also depending on the type of delay. And there's my reverb, so I can go ahead and set all of these settings the way I want it. But it's going to work fine with my signal chain, because just going back to the signal chain, I can take any of these ideas and I can use my volume control or two drive pedals stacked together to shape my sound. So I can shape some awesome things over here. I've got the boost there to give me a bit of a volume boost, and not so much the thing is the booster pedal gives me a volume boost, and my volume when I play, it's always at full. I don't use my volume pedal to give me a boost. I can if I wanted to, but that's where I either use my boost, or if, and this is important, you should have the ability to go louder and softer. But in some instances, when you're working with a sound guy that actually knows you're playing, or sometimes if there's a part that he really needs to feature, then they can ride your levels on the desk, right? With a fader, they can go up or they can go down depending on what you are playing. If they can't trust your sound for you to give them a consistent, solid package of a sound, then they would be scared to put you louder, because what if they put you louder and now all of a sudden you go louder as well? So you kind of need to have that understanding. If you've got a well-equipped sound engineer, they might ride those levels. So if you're already at full volume in the toe down position with your volume pedal, he can boost you a little bit there. But if you don't have that kind of a sound, guys, then you probably want to leave. You want to probably play around 80% on your volume pedal, so that if there's a solo or a guitar part that needs to stand out, then you have that ability to boost the volume there a little bit. So that's basically what I've got to say for you over that. Is that's the way to go with the volume pedal. And then obviously your delays is just the main settings of your delays are going to be just to make sure that you understand how to get all those bits and pieces together. So you're going to have the timing of the delay, right, in terms of like how fast it should go. You're also going to have the repeats. How many repeats do you want on that delay pedal, which sometimes that's called feedback. And then you're going to have your mix or your levels, like how loud should those repeats be. We've got a detailed video on all the settings for delay on our channel, and the same with reverb. So feel free to go and check those out, and then just remember that these basic foundational settings in terms of like getting your signal chain right, in terms of understanding how you can use different pedals together to shape the sound, and how to properly use the volume pedal, like where to place it, so that you can do what you got to do and feel confident. Because this is a big deal, is like just listen to this sound, you know. It's a lot. And what have I got here in the X? Let me just see what this is. So I also have another soft shaper here. So that's a lot of distortion and overdrive, and a lot of people sometimes comment it's quite overdriven for worship, but I never play like that in church, right? But I do sometimes rip out a full power chord when we want some powerful moments. But this same sound can play some sweet stuff like I've played before. But I know that I can control the sound, and the sound can sing, it can cut through, and it can give me all of that grittiness on the tone that I can then use to give a gentle sound. And there's this cool quote that says, it's better to be a warrior in the garden than what it is to be a gardener in war. And it's better to have a tone that can go really dirty and full and all the way, but you know how to control it, than being in a situation where you want more from your tone, but you don't have the ability to control it, whether that's skill in your playing, your technique, or whether it's how you've got your pedal board set up. Maybe it's a signal chain, maybe it's an incorrect setting on a compression that's kind of giving too much, negatively affecting everything else down the chain, or maybe it's the wrong placement of your volume pedal. These basic things will allow you to play with a dirty tone, but have it give you some sweet moments. So I'll do a bit of a jam as we finish up here, and then if you guys have any additional questions, feel free to ask, and then we'll just quickly wrap up with a few of the comments. Larry's saying he's got a deluxe Mexican telly, a TC Electronics tuner, noise suppressor, volume pedal, Keeley compressor, a pitchfork, blues driver, DD2 Boss delay, spring reverb, DD 200 delay, Impress reverb, and a single 12-inch tube amp. Yeah, that's an awesome rig. So when we've got all these things together, you guys can see why it's important to really get your tone dialed in. And then Michael Rue saying compression does drive the signal a bit more, but again, the gear, the power supply, patch cables, volume level, and all those kind of things is going to affect it, right? Because if you've got, it's a great observation there is, if you've got bad power in your venue, or if you've got bad patch cables, all those kind of things is going to affect it. So those are just some good things to pay attention to, very, very important. And Michael's got a Deep 6 compression. He wants to put that back in the chain. Yeah, I've heard good things about that. Never played any one of those, but they make awesome stuff. And then Snowco Adventure saying, this is great, brother. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And then Michael saying, he's got a saying, the most important gear you can have will be the pedals, left and right on your head, your ears. Ain't that the truth? It's about knowing how to apply the things, and it's about listening well and then using that to shape the tone. Very, very good. Larry's then saying the noise suppression pedal he uses has a loop for noisy pedals, and his volume pedal controls the loop signal before the signal goes to the delay in the reverb pedals. So the trails go on with the volume off. Yes, fantastic. You can also do some of those clever wiring in a sense of like when you have stereo outputs, or you can route signals different ways. Of course, on the Helix, all those things are possible as well to do that. So if you have the knowledge and the know-how to do that, you can definitely take advantage of some awesome technology like Larry mentioned there. And Levi Klassen, tuning in from Alberta, Canada. Sounds like a South African surname, so welcome Levi, great to see you. And then Caster saying, when I pick two strings at the same time, my sound sometimes just gets ruined and get some kind of a bell sound. Anything I can do about that? Could be the technique or gear wise. Yeah, that's a great observation. Again, we get this thing that we call overtones on the guitar. And I get all these harmonics. And if I do a... So there's not just a one signal, there's these overtones that work together and sometimes creates this almost choir vibe of tones and overtones and all these kind of things. So what sometimes happens when you play two notes together, sometimes the tuning can be slightly out, and then those two notes, they have frequencies that start to fight each other. It can be a tuning thing. It can be because what happens is sometimes you can double your frequencies and all those kind of things. So that can also happen. So if that's happening for you, Caster, what I might suggest is see if you can reduce some of the overdrive. And that's what I wanted to say with these overtones. See if you can reduce the drive a bit, because then that might get rid of some of those not so nice overtones, because you can get ones that are beautiful and sounding awesome. So that might be something to experiment with a little bit. And Levi saying all he has is a true booster. Those are awesome too. And then Snides saying later to the show, but we'll catch up. Perry in Fairbanks. Hey Perry. Perry Snyder, great to see you joining us over here. Wonderful. Well, guys, that's it for today. If anyone has any burning questions, I'm happy to answer those. And then what I might do is just a quick little jam to kind of show you how I would use the tones that you heard me use here today. So let's see what we can come up with. All right, fun and games with some talking tone today. It's kind of a never-ending quest, and I have to say, when you have a nice tone, something, if you know you're going to strike the guitar, you're going to get a certain sound of it, it's quite freeing in a sense that you know you can use that sound and you can deliver whatever it is that you need to do. So hopefully you guys found this useful today with a chat in and around tone elements and signal chain and so forth. We've got a detailed video coming up where I'll take some more time to unpack the different settings and all those kind of things around tone, so you can see what that's about. And if you want to learn more about this specific tone that I use, there's a video on our YouTube channel, also a video about delay, and there's also a video about reverb, quite detailed, going into the different types of that. So if you want to check that out, you're welcome. And then Kenan also did a breakdown not too long ago of his pedal board, where he's got actual pedals going into an HX Stomp. The opportunities are endless. So wonderful, guys. Thanks so much for all the support. Awesome to see you. Much love to everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and we look forward to seeing you guys back again next week. Have a good one. We'll chat soon, and we appreciate all of the support as always. And thanks, Levi, and thanks, Michael. Tot later, mater. Awesome. Blessings. Much love to you guys. Keep practicing, keep improving, and keep remembering that when we improve our worship guitar skills and we get to serve our local congregation, that amazing things can happen when people can engage truly and fully into worship and receive a word and a touch from God. And I mean, I can't think of anything better in the world to do, which is to combine our love for guitar and music and worship and our love for Christ and use that to serve the body. So when the tone's not working, when there's technical difficulties like we had in the beginning of the stream, when you feel behind with your skill development, when your schedule's busy and you don't get to improve or practice as much as you want, just keep the reason why we do this all front and center, and that will really help us to improve in the right ways and to have the right heart attitude at the end of the day, because the word says, protect your heart, for out of it flows the issues of life. And when we show up on worship stage with a heart for people, a heart for God, and a heart to serve, then God can take whatever we bring as an offering, and he can bless that, and he can use that to be a blessing to others. So I just want to encourage you guys to that, for that, and I want to say awesome work, what you're doing, putting in the work and serving the body. We know that now more than ever, it's a lost and dying world out there, and we need to be the light of the world. So awesome that we get to do that with some awesome weapons in our hands, with the guitars. So very, very cool. Thank you, guys. Lovely to see everyone, and we'll see you on the next one. Take it easy. Bye-bye.